Hi there. My son likes to drive this thing a lot, but you know what he can't do? Drive it at, why does it keep rolling down the hill? He can't drive it at night. He also can't drive it when it's raining. A few other limitations with something like this, although this is a more raw experience. I want to give him a chance to race virtually and just practice his driving skills, something I never got to do as a child. He loves cars, I love cars. I think it's gonna be an awesome gift for Christmas. So let's jump straight into it, shall we? This was originally what we had in mind for the rig. So this is gonna be a GT Lite Junior. This is made for kids between the ages of like 5 and 12. And I think we're gonna throw it into a short because we're not gonna use it in this video. I've got something else in mind. See, Next Level Racing has several different style sim setups. You can buy GT versions, like upright seats. Some of these seats look very premium, in fact, very large chassis that frankly wouldn't fit in an office like the one I'm in, but none of them fit a younger kid, save the brand new GT Lite that I just showed you. With one exception, this go-kart style frame. I thought this was super cool. Not only does this fit larger folks, I'm not large by any means, I'm about 5'9", 5'10". This apparently would fit me as well. Now, not the way we're gonna set this up for my son, of course, but a style like this is a little more versatile. So it should, in theory, work for older, larger people, but also younger, smaller folks. It also looks pretty darn cool. Let's place the order then. I'll see you in a few days. You know what? I'm not even gonna try to pick this up. So how about we just build it? Bit of a time lapse. That took a while, about 3 to 4 hours of not only assembly, which was actually the easy part. The instructions were straightforward, but there were a few areas where some of the screw holes weren't lining up with the threads in other parts of the chassis. This isn't uncommon for a setup like this, but you do have to kind of flex the metal in a couple places to get things situated just right. But again, that was the easy part. The hard part was trying to arrange all of this such that it's compatible with the height of a 5-year-old. You can see the seat actually slides forward and back, which is nice, although occasionally it does get stuck. It's not the most robust system, but it is nice that it's adjustable. Of course, for my son, it's gonna be all the way forward. And yeah, the wheel is a bit further forward than you might expect. That's just because we don't really have any other place to mount this. That's probably my one complaint with this entire chassis. You can see here where it gets locked in via 4 screws, but this is the only place to mount it. You can't move this column back anymore. You can't even move it further forward if you wanted to for whatever reason. Some of the other racing sims, like the one I use, actually has little rails on the sides, and so the opening is in the middle for your legs and whatnot. This post comes right between your legs, which can cause issues for certain people. And as you can imagine, my son had to sit in the rig several times while we were building it so that we could position things such that he could reach them. This is clearly, at this point I can tell, not designed for a 5-year-old. There are a few limitations, including how close the wheel is going to be to his torso. There's not much we can do that without replacing the pedal board, which we also had to modify a bit, but I'll get to that shortly. I hope you will stay with me. If you're planning your next PC build, then consider checking out our sponsor, VIP SCD Key. Their Windows 10 and 11 OEM keys sell for a fraction of retail and will unlock the full potential of your OS. They'll also remove those pesky activation watermarks. Click the links below to get started today, and be sure to use our special offer code SKGS for a sweet discount on a variety of options, including Windows 10 and 11, Pro and Home, and more. So yeah, there's still quite a bit we need to tweak with this chassis. We still need to adjust the wheel height a bit. it. I'm working on the pedals. I've actually removed the clutch, which I know looks very funny, but it gets the job done. He doesn't need a clutch for the games he's playing right now. I'd rather him get used to, first off, the feeling, how touchy the throttle's gonna be, how sensitive the brakes are, and of course the wheel itself, the steering feedback, and even paddles. If he wants to get into shifting, I'd like to start him off with paddles. But the racing sim also needs a monitor, and I have found a pretty compelling solution that doesn't necessarily break the bank. This here is a Spectre 34-inch curved ultra-wide WQHD monitor. So that's 3440 by 1440. It has an R1500 curve, which I think is important for a smaller sim setup. It has 99% of the sRGB color gamut baked in, a 1 millisecond response time, and a 165 Hz refresh rate. It even includes things like picture-by-picture and universal VESA mounting support, which is also important for our go-kart sim. But the elephant in the room with this monitor was display technology. I couldn't find for the life of me any indication that this was either a TN display or an IPS display, something I wish Spectre was a little more, let's say, transparent about on their Amazon product page. I think it's a valid concern for anybody shopping, really in any budget for a gaming monitor. You need to know what display technology is used because that affects things like color reproduction, it affects things like refresh rate, ghosting, all of that matters. Turns out this uses VA technology, which I'll be honest, for a budget panel like this, I'm not gonna complain about. And you can see here, this is the position we've chosen. I know from your perspective, things are a bit skewed, but you do get a nice reference for the curve of this panel. And I think, again, it's important for a racing sim because you don't want things on the corners of your screen being much further away from your eyes than things in the center. This wraparound feels very natural for a single viewer, and in most cases, that's going to be the driver of said sim. This one might surprise you. So I found a Thermaltake Tower 100 open box on Amazon for 60 bucks. And I know it looks a bit weird. It kind of reminds me of like an arcade like claw game because you can kind of see your rig from 3 different sides, but it should fit, if my measurements again are correct, in the back center of the sim frame, which means that it'll kind of blend in with the other components and won't take up extra space, say, to the left or to the right of the frame. So that's the idea behind this. I'm not sure how it's gonna work out though. So let's build a PC, shall we? Now for much of this, the platform mainly, I'm actually going to recycle from a previous ITX build we did on the channel. It's gonna be the Backpack version 2 PC, which ended up admittedly being a bit larger than I expected for the typical backpack out there. I actually had to buy a camping backpack in order for it to fit. So not a ton of use for me personally. I'm going to strip the platform out of this. It's basically just a bunch of white components, which I know is gonna look a bit strange in a black ITX chassis like the Tower 100, but there are some white accents, including in the Thermaltake logo, so I don't think it's gonna be a total eyesore. I actually spent a good 15 to 20 minutes playing around with this chassis, removing panels, trying to figure out where things ran. I was especially concerned about cable management because I wasn't sure where the power supply would go. It turns out you actually stuff it below the platform assembly. It kind of slides in underneath these grills, and you just stuff all your extra cables down here. You can't really see them without these panels removed, which is nice, and there's enough space where you don't have to worry about, say, running cable extensions and running out of room. As for the graphics card, I opted for an NVIDIA RTX 4070 Ti. Now, these aren't the best values on paper, but many of the games that my son will be playing, including Formula 1, like F123, I believe Forza as well. I might be wrong about Forza, but there are a few others I know support DLSS, so that's gonna be a big help. It'll take more of the load off of the card, give him a chance to stream when he's older if he wants, and it's also going to be, I mean, just an overall powerful card for an ultra-wide 1440p monitor. We wanna drive the frame rate as high as possible. It's important to have a super fluid experience while racing, and I think that this card is going to keep up in that department. Some storage, a power supply, and cable management later, and we have ourselves a pretty sweet looking rig. I'll be honest, I didn't think I would be a fan of the Tower 100, but Thermaltake has something going here. It really is a unique looking build. I mean, if you want to attract attention, wherever this thing is set up, it will definitely do that. And now for the moment of truth, will this fit at the back of our racing sims? You see there's a cutout here behind the pedal board where I expect to be able to squeeze this chassis, and it's, oh, just right. Like not even an inch to spare. It's not super snuggly, it's not scratching it or anything, but it's just right. And this should keep the overall aesthetic nice and compact. We're not gonna have, again, a random PC just kind of sitting off to the side from the racing sim. And I've done something very similar with my own setup. I actually have an old Fractal case that's been sitting underneath the pedal board of my FGT chassis. And in the setting that it's in now, you can't even tell that there's a PC running it because it is such a compact case. I threw in a bit of a personal touch with some of the letters that Next Level Racing includes in the go-kart sim box. And here we are. Yeah. Ooh, that's a tight fit. I just want to show you what this looks like for like an average sized human male. It's very similar to like a, that mini go-kart I showed you at the beginning of the video. That was kind of the point, and this was something that I couldn't give him with my personal FGT setup. So yeah, this is compact for me, but for him, you'll see it is just right. I also want to take a minute to show off some of the cable management that we did for this rig. So I have used several different zip ties and run most of the cables from not only the steering column, the pedal board, etc., but also from the monitor along the frame and around the back of each post, such that you can't really see them, keeping them as bunched up as possible. I don't expect I'm going to be swapping any of this out anytime soon, and this just overall adds to the very clean aesthetic. Yeah, getting out of this is more difficult than I thought it would be. Now, as mentioned, the pedal board is situated as close to the seat as possible. Obviously, we have a height constraint given that he's only 5 years old, but he reaches these where they are no problem. And we took out the, this used to be the brake actually. We took the clutch out, which was sitting here. We moved the brake over to the clutch location where it's normally situated. That way he has sort of like a go-kart feel where you've got your acceleration far off to one side and the brake far off to the other, just a couple of cables to splice internally, and they work no problem. I've also got a cool little speaker here that I found for like 20 bucks on Amazon. It actually packs a heck of a punch. It just plugs into your PC via USB, and I've situated it such that it doesn't interfere at all with the pedals. It eliminates the need for a headset. I can still talk to him and sort of coach him through different circuits as he's learning. It's a big help, and again, it didn't really break the bank either. I've done this twice in one video now. It was a lot of work, but it's, I think, paid off. Like father, like son, we can race together. I know it looks like his screen's blocking mine. It's not. Mine's much further back, and it doesn't even get close to blocking my field of view. I think this is an awesome go-kart sim, and it didn't cost, I mean, an egregious sum of cash. I think I paid 500 bucks for it. On paper, that is a lot of money, very clearly, but racing sim stuff in general is fairly expensive. So if you're only spending 500 bucks on a sim frame, I think you're off to a good start. And this one is definitely quality. As I'm sure you'd expect, like a moth to a flame, he absolutely loved this setup. So he actually went downstairs after we got the seat situated, as well as the steering wheel and the pedals. He hadn't seen the PC yet. He really loved that. He was looking around it, thought it was really cool that he could see from 3 different sides. Loved the monitor, loved that it was big like mine, and he hopped right in and just got right to work. Now, I admittedly didn't turn on any assists in Formula One F123 when he first started, so he was sliding around quite a bit to begin with, but I wanted to just throw him into the deep end and get him used to how touchy the throttle and the brake can be, especially when you don't have things like traction control enabled. You know, if you can drive a Formula One car without traction control, even virtually, you could pretty much handle any other normal car out there with the right touch and feel of the pedals. And he very quickly adapted, but of course, he also wanted to try games like Forza. He loves Forza Motorsport. He also loves Forza Horizon. I turned things off for him like manual shifting, so the car shifts by itself. Of course, there's no clutch involved anymore, and then helped him a bit with the drive line so that he knows where to brake, where to turn, where to hit the apex, all stuff that he will eventually get better at with time. Of course, we all start from zero. We all start from the bottom, right? And him starting at this young of an age, I hope will pay off for him if he decides to pursue this hobby and maybe, who knows, turn it into a career someday. Thank you so much for watching. I know this was a bit unorthodox. On the channel, you're used to seeing computers being either built or fixed, and this kind of ventures outside that a bit with, of course, the adaptation of the racing sim. But every now and then, I don't think it hurts to step out of the office for a bit. I know that the sim ended up in the office, but we did have a bit of fun outside in the beginning, and this is just one of my passions. It's one of my son's passions. I threw Hot Wheels cars into his hands when he was like 6 months old. I don't know if those are choking hazards or not, but he turned out all right, and he absolutely loves cars. He is borderline obsessed with them. But seriously, he has like over 1,000 cars already. I don't know how he got a hold of that many. He's super pumped, and you saw he's just glued to that screen. He is all about trying to improve his lap times. He gets really frustrated when he gets hit and gets thrown off the track and has to restart. Like that's part of being a racer, like that desire to win at all costs, and he just gets super frustrated when things don't go your way. But again, this is all stuff that he can learn at a much younger age. Hopefully that technique as well sticks with him at a younger age, so that by the time maybe he decides to go into go-karting, if that's what he wants, he'll be better prepared than he otherwise would have been. Again, thanks so much for watching. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning with me.